Okay. All right. I'm going to start that again because the recording hadn't started. This one is on Newspaper Research 2020. And what I've done is I've taken a look at some of the new resources that are available to us and some of the things you may find, where to look, where to research, and we'll go from there. There's some interesting things here. Okay, is everybody ready? All right. Genealogy is only about 3 dates: birth, marriage, death. Believe it or not, there are some genealogists that think that way. They think that when they have done that, they find a birth and a marriage and a death, that their job is over. Well, they're missing out on a lot. They really are. There's so much more available out there. So why should we take a look at historical newspaper research? Well, first of all, nearly everybody in their lifetime eventually makes it into one of the newspapers for some reason or other. Could be a crime they committed, could be that they graduated from school, could be that they got married. There are a bunch of reasons. There's birth announcements, human interest stories, military service, college graduation, engagement, marriage, and the most overlooked research point, anniversaries. What you should do when you go home, you take every one of your people in your database that got married and you go out 25 years after that marriage date and look for an anniversary announcement. And then go 50, and then 55, 60, 65, 70. You would be surprised what you would find out there. And most people never look at that. So the other thing are promotions, retirements, death, of course, probate records. Probate can tell you an awful lot about what's going on. And there's much more. So here's a few examples of what I found in newspapers, just looking around and preparing for this talk tonight. Okay. Recognize that one? This was in a Greendale newspaper, and says Bob Heck walks 38 participants of the Greendale Public Library through a beginner's computer course designed to help residents learn research techniques for finding their family roots. The computer genealogy course is offered by the Milwaukee Personal Ancestral File Users Group. That's us. And there are a few people in there that you may recognize. Let's see. There's Lois Molitor. There's Jerry DeLeyden. There's Betty Larson. That's me. In the back is Diane Gray right there. She's deceased. Here's Al Kester, our treasurer, our first treasurer. He's deceased. I think this guy back here, I'm not sure, is Steve. What was his last name? Arndt. Steve Arndt. Thanks. So.
What year?
What year was that? Well, I'm not sure of the year. This particular picture was taken in the Greendale Library conference room. That's where we used to have our meetings. So we originally started out in actually at the Family History Center for one meeting. Then we ended up over at the Hales Corners Public Library, and we were there for what, a year, maybe 2 years, somewhere around there. And then we moved to the Greendale Library. So this had to be what, 1995 maybe?
Early 2000.
Maybe about that, roughly?
2000, 2001.
What?
1999, 2000.
99, 2000, that late?
Yeah, because I started in 97 at Hales Corners. So.
Okay. Okay, so anyway, here's one. Here's a picture of my grandfather, circled in red there. And this is his retirement class from Horlick's Malted Milk Company down in Racine. And there's his name is John Michael. And here are the people that he retired with. So people would normally never have that in their database, something like that. My grandfather had a stroke, And the doctors said he will never talk again, he'll never walk again, he'll never know anybody again. This picture here was taken at the age of 90, which is several years after he had his stroke. And he's dancing with his niece at a nursing home. And this is down in Racine. And so there he was, dancing with his niece. And after we finished that, he wanted to play sheep's head. And this was in 1974. That picture was in the newspaper. Here's a legal notice that was in the newspaper. This is my favorite one. It was from 1849, and what it did is it proved the link between my Burgess family here in Wisconsin to the Burgess family in Vermont and New York. And it's a legal notice is what it is. And basically what it did is it found that there were 5 Burgess relatives in Wisconsin, one in Otsego, New York, or Otsego County, and I know that's where the Burgesses lived at one time, one in White Creek, New York, which I knew they lived in, 9 in Bennington, Vermont, 4 in Troy, New York, and 1 in Hoosick, New York. All those places were familiar with me. So here in a single paragraph, I found the connection to all these people, and I can read just a little bit of it right here. It says, the people of the state of New York, by the grace of God, free and independent, to George Burgess, Meyer Burgess, Benjamin Burgess, Alonzo Burgess, and Patience Burgess. Patience is my great-great-grandmother. That's Cheryl's great-great-great-grandmother. And then it goes on and it defines all these other people, and it says greetings, and they're being asked to appear as part of a probate for John Burgess, who is deceased. He was a brother. So that's how powerful that document can be. Here's another one. Here's an article about me in a German newspaper. And you can see circled there is my name, Bob Heck. And it's an article about me doing research, and it appeared in a German newspaper. So what I'm telling you is don't limit yourself to U.S. newspapers. You can research German, Polish, Czech, many, many different countries. Get outside of your local area so you can include European newspapers. This particular one's from Heinrichsburg, Germany. So here's a partial translation. It said, a few weeks ago, this newspaper referred to a request from Bob Heck from the United States. Heck is looking for his ancestor in Heinrichsburg. He is the descendant of a Henningfield who immigrated to America in the last century. So that's just one little clip of that. Here's another one. This was in the Main Post from Würzburg, Germany, and it was December 1960. And basically what it's saying, there's a translation. It says, the L1 aviation certificate was passed by George Durloff, Edgar Strauss, and Michael Gauck, and the American club members Oswald E. Powers, Robert J. Heck, and Alton W. Harmon. So this appeared in a German newspaper, and that picture is of me standing next to the glider as I was getting ready to go up for my final exam or final test. So, and that was in the German newspaper. So don't forget ethnic papers. I marked these here with a heart to show these are German. And this is in doing a search for Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And so there's 5 German newspapers there. A good friend of ours who's deceased now, but she was looking for an obituary for her grandfather. And her grandfather was born in Poland, and they lived in Milwaukee. And she had never seen an obituary for him, and she had searched the Milwaukee Journal, the Milwaukee Sentinel, and never found anything. And I said, well, I'm going up to Madison, and they happen to have all the Wisconsin newspapers up there. and including the ethnic newspapers. So I looked in the Polish newspapers, I had his name and his date of death, and lo and behold, I found his obituary there. And I was able to provide that for her. Okay. So here's an archive, there's the address, and it's in your handout. It's Wikipedia, it's a list of online newspaper archives. And if you go there, it lists every country and US states. For example, it lets you search for Czech Republic even. So here I decided to do a little search for Czech Republic, and there were three primary, actually four that were listed. One is an archive. This one here, I had no idea what it was, except that it said that you basically needed to be in a library in the Czech Republic to use it. So that was a problem. This one, I didn't, it's a freebie. I didn't look at that one, but this one caught my eye. And it's the Moravian Library, 1893 to 1945, and it's free. And that's where my family came from, was Moravia, which is next to the White Carpathian Mountains, bordering between the Czech Republic and Slovak Republic. And lo and behold, I found my great-grandmother, Anna Pasterikova, was listed in here. So there's all sorts of things you can find. So where can you find, where do you find newspapers? There's some categories that I classify these as. I say current local newspapers. That'd be like trying to find out who died this week in the Milwaukee Journal. So that's a current local newspaper. There's an archive local newspaper. Typically, they may go back 4 or 5 years. Some go back much further. There are county newspapers, and there are farm newspapers. So you have to consider, what was your ancestors' occupation? If they were a farmer, most likely they didn't subscribe to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Most likely they would have subscribed to a county paper or a farm paper, because that had contained information that was of interest to them. Historical Society newspaper collections are great, and we'll look at some of those. And then there are the subscription archive newspapers. Those are commercial, you pay a fee, and generally they're quite well done and they're worth it. We'll talk about those. Here is the current local newspapers in Wisconsin. There are actually more than what's listed here, but these are the big ones. And you can see that you got the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and there's the webpage. The State Journal, that's mostly Madison, Duluth. The Post-Crescent is the Appleton area. La Crosse. The Leader-Telegram is around Eau Claire and Chippewa Valley. Journal-Times is Racine County. Kenosha News, Janesville Gazette. These are the biggies, the bigger newspapers. So those are referred to as current local. Then we got this webpage, Ella Find, I guess that's how you pronounce it, Ella Find. And this collection contains over 190 million items, newspaper pages and articles. And it covers the period from 1787 through 2019. It's newspapers from the USA, Canada, Australia, and many foreign countries, and it's free. So mark that one. Here, Elephant has Door County in Wisconsin, 1862 to 1925. So if your ancestors came from Door County, they're probably going to be in one of these papers. They're all online, and they're all free. Okay, this one here is the Illinois digital newspaper collection, and basically it covers, well, 1831, roughly, yeah, that's the beginning, through 1975, but there are farm, right here, farm, field, and fireside from 1841 to 2011. So if your family were farmers, that's the one you want to look at. This one here, American Popular Entertainment, unless you're looking for Bruce Butterfield when he took tap dance lessons, you're not going to find too much in there. But Bruce, you may want to look at that one. And then this one here is Collegiate Chronicle. And what it is, it's a prototype. It's kind of a collection of student newspapers. And 1871 to 2004. So if you had a college student in Illinois, anywhere in Illinois, you could possibly find something about them there. Places to look. This one here is through the Library of Congress. It's called Chronicling America, and it's a free one. And it contains over 15 million pages. And there's 2,900 different titles from 48 of the states. So there's a lot of information there. So I decided to try a little bit of a search. I did Wisconsin and McNulty. My great-grandmother's maiden name was a McNulty, and they lived in Wisconsin. And you can see each one of that's got the red marks in there has information of Wisconsin and McNulty. So it's a good way to search. So I took a look at one of them, and here's an obituary. Mrs. Thomas McNulty. She died suddenly in her home in Spring Green on February 1st. Apoplexy, which is stroke, I understand, right? It was the cause. Mr. McNulty went home for his dinner at about 11:30 o'clock, found his wife lying unconscious upon the floor. Mrs. McNulty died about an hour later without having regained consciousness. And then preparations for a noon meal were completed, and she was stricken while setting or getting the table ready. So it's some, basic information. She had been ill for quite some time, and but it gives you information. This one is an odd one. It's called the Old Fulton, New York Postcards. And I stumbled on this one, and the reason it caught my attention was because it contains over 48 million pages of United States and Canadian historical newspapers. That's a lot of newspapers. So you never know where you're going to find this stuff. So here I did a search in the Old Fulton, New York newspaper search, specifically for Cheryl. Cheryl? You're listening? Okay. I did a search for Fall River and the name Simmons, which is a name she's been researching for 100 years. And there were, I'm not sure the quantity, but there were a bunch that came up and that have both Fall River and Simmons in there. And you can go through and you can look at them. So, okay. Here's another collection system. It's called Advantage Archives Collections. It's got a fairly long web address. So this is the address, and there are no spaces in a web address. Okay. And this one contains 650 collections from 42 states with over 70 million historical newspapers in the United States. But it also includes something that's called the Ancestor Hunt, and that's what you want to look at. That's one of those neat things. So here's an Ancestor Hunt. It includes newspapers, obituaries, birth, marriage, death records, directories, photos, yearbooks. Yearbooks are neatest things. Those are school yearbooks. And divorce records, naturalization, immigration, church records, school records, voter lists, coroner's records. If somebody died mysteriously, there'll be a coroner's report. Probate and wills. And I love that picture. It's a grandpa giving his grandkids a ride in a basket. And look, he's got wooden shoes on. Boy, you hope he doesn't trip. So here's the Ancestor Hunt. And again, there's a list of the different items that are in it over here. It's a really good system to look at. So you can refine your search. In this case, I refined it to Wisconsin, and now it lists Wisconsin, and I did a search for the family name LaBarge, which was my wife's maiden name. And there's a whole bunch of them that showed up. Let's see if they have a quantity. 188 results. So there's 188 pages of newspapers that has that combination. And you can see where it's highlighted in red, that contains the name LaBarge. And what's interesting is this is Ladysmith, 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 Ladysmith. That's where the LaBarge family came from, Ladysmith, Wisconsin. And one of the pictures that I found in their articles was this one. This is my father-in-law right here, Richard LaBarge, and that's his sister, Kate, and that's his brother, Donnie, or Wilfred, they called him. And the three of them were home at Christmas time in 1943 during the Second World War. And Kate was a nurse's cadet. My father-in-law, Richard, was a turret gunner on a bomber flying out of England. And Wilfred, or Donnie, they called him, was a sailor and had served in, I think, 3 different areas of the war. There's an article about it. That was neat. I had not seen that picture. Here's one that's called Trove. And this is a little bit unusual. It contains over 23 million newspaper pages from Australia. How many of you have Australian ancestors? You do, all right. Usually, when I ask that question, nobody has any. However, it also contains many articles from Wisconsin, which surprised me. I did not expect that. I found a couple of neat ones. Here's one, talks about the Peshtigo fire that took place in 1871. Nobody remembers that fire. They only remember the Chicago fire that took place at the same time. But there are more people killed in the Peshtigo fire than in the Chicago fire. There was more damage from the Peshtigo than the Chicago. So here's an article about it, Wisconsin fires, and it was from the Milwaukee Sentinel. But this is the one that really caught my eye. In 1905, Wisconsin tax on bachelors. And it started out right here, this thing. It says, Wisconsin tax on bachelors. Wisconsin leads the world so far as the taxing of bachelors is concerned. I said, what? So I dug down into it a little bit, and here it says, the only unmarried males to escape the tax are those who can satisfactorily prove that they have done their best to get married and failed. Spinsters, however, you know what spinsters are. They're females that are unmarried. So spinsters, however, get off scot-free, seeing that, as the introducer of the bill rather unkindly put it, old maids have enough to put up with already. I thought this was a classic. 1905, tax for being a bachelor. Wow. So here's Google has a news archives. It's a pretty neat system. Here's the address. It contains over 2,500 newspapers from the U.S. and Canada. And you can select from the list. You can see a lot of French-sounding names, which is obviously from the Quebec province. And then there's the historical societies. And my favorite one is the Burlington Historical Society. Have any of you ever been out there to Burlington? Okay, I know Cheryl has. And basically what happened, there was this couple that lived there in Burlington, almost across the street from their historical society. They're both deceased now. And what they did as kind of a hobby, they took all the Burlington newspapers and they indexed every single name in it. from way, way, way back. And they put together this collection. Well, their son took over that after they had passed on. And he is still a member of the Burlington Historical Society. And they put together a system that's online, that's free. And all those newspapers can be accessed then at the library right across the street. But what they did is they put the index up there. So if you take a look, here it's search the databases, because there are quite a few databases in this system. So basically they have one, and there's the web address right here, Burlington and vicinity people. So that covers quite a bit of area. It covers some of Kenosha County, mostly rural type areas, Racine County, Kenosha County, Walworth County. Burlington and vicinity marriages, Burlington events from 1835 until recently, covers a big time period. Burlington homes and farms. If your ancestor farmed in that area, they're in here. Then Burlington and vicinity Civil War, 1861 to 1865. And my great-grandfather has his picture in that database. It's really neat. Okay, so there's more than just 3 dates to genealogy. And here's what I found in this Burlington site. My great-grandfather, Henry Heck, first of all, it says he was married to Mary Ann McNulty, and he was born on February 10th, 1839. He's buried, his burial took place on February 23rd, 1920, and he was a Civil War veteran. So that's what that's telling us. The next one, you see this number? That's the code number. And the S stands for the Standard Democrat newspaper of Burlington. The F stands for the Burlington Free Press. So that means that this one here in the Standard Democrat, on that particular date, Henry Heck advertises his Kansasville farm for sale or rent. And here, this one here, in 1895, he was in an accident. It's a horse-drawn carriage, and he obviously was going too fast, speeding, and he apparently hit a bump while rounding a corner and was thrown from the buggy and was severely injured. And of course, they didn't have ambulances back then. So the farmer saw him laying out there, picked him up, carried him in the house, and kept him in his house for 3 days until he was able to go back home. That story was in that newspaper right there. And in 1896, his pension was increased for being a Civil War vet, and it told the amount and the dates and all that. And then in 1897, he sold his Brighton, Kenosha County farm. So, and then in 1898, he ended up with a renewal of his pension. And I thought, why would they renew a pension? That doesn't click. And when I got the article and I took a look, he had done something and somehow or other got taken off the records, and he had to be reinstated again. And that's what that article is about. And then, of course, his horse Dexter died. I never knew he had a horse named Dexter. That's probably the same horse that was running too fast. And, I got a feeling Henry might have shot him, but I don't know. But anyway, Dexter died. So they wrote a newspaper article about it. In this one here, it says he went to Minnesota for an extended visit. I thought, okay, that's interesting, because I had this picture, and Cheryl recognizes that one. This is Henry Heck right here. That's his sister, Clara Heck Brunner, and that's his brother-in-law, Vincent Brunner. These two are married. And I had that picture, but I did not know when it was taken. But yet from that newspaper article, I found out it was October 11th, 1912. So it's zeroed right in. She died within a couple of years, and he died in 1920. So he lived to an old age. BadgerLink. How many of you use BadgerLink? Okay, quite a few of you. That's good. Here's the address, badgerlink.net. Excuse me a second. BadgerLink is a really great place to start. It's a project of the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. And you do need to have a current library card from any library in the state of Wisconsin. And if you have a card, how many of you have a library card from Wisconsin? How many have used it in the last year? A couple, okay. If you haven't used it in recent years, you probably need to go to the library and have it updated in order to use BadgerLink.
Except you can't.
I'm sorry, what?
Except you can't now.
Libraries are closed.
Oh, the libraries are closed, yeah. Well,
Quantico's open.
which one?
Quantico's open.
McGuanago. Go to McGuanago. What did you say?
Hill's Corners is open.
Yale's Corners is open, okay.
We're just there today.
Which one?
New Berlin.
New Berlin is open. Yeah, you live in Milwaukee, see, that's the problem. Okay, so anyway, you do need to go and have your card updated in order to use it. And basically what you do, it's pretty simple once you have it updated. You just go there, you give them the card, you say, look, I haven't used the library card in a while, can you update it so I can use BadgerLink? That's all you have to do. And then what you do is you go into the site and you use the library card login. And right here is choose your library or your school. And right below, you put your library card number in. You only have to do that one time. That's it. So here's a list of all the libraries in Wisconsin, and you can just pick out any one of them. Preferably pick out one that you use. I can tell you that the West Bend Library is more than happy to accept registration from anyone. I know they do that. Then what you do is you enter the library card number right there, and then you get to the starting page. So this is the starting page of the BadgerLink site. And the things we want to look at are down here. So I'm going to blow that up. Okay. So you can go in either one of these two, to be honest with you. You can browse by subject or you can browse by format. We'll look at what's there. Either one will get you there. This one here is browse by format, and you can see newspapers. This is by subject. There you would click on genealogy. So if you select newspapers or genealogy, you'll end up with this site right here. And now you can select what it is you're looking for. So Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers, that's one of the things that's in there. And that's a full text daily and weekly Wisconsin newspapers from 2005 to 90 days ago. So that's got a lot of papers in. Plus you can get 38 Wisconsin newspapers from the 1800s to the 1900s. And the earliest newspaper you'll find in there was from 1852. So you can search, again, hundreds of Wisconsin newspapers there, but then if you want, you can click over here and that will search historical newspapers. If you keep clicking here, it'll switch back and forth from current archived to historical. Historical is usually where you want to be. And here's the other view of it. So here I found, again in preparing for this talk tonight, a death record for Dale G. Henningfeld in Crandon, Wisconsin newspaper. I had this gentleman in my database. I knew that he was deceased, but I had no idea when or where or what circumstances were. And lo and behold, the very first thing I found was an article about 25 years ago, February 2nd, 1995. A snowmobiler dies, 2 were hurt in a collision on Pickerel Lake. And lo and behold, it was Dale G. Henningfield, 38, died when his snowmobile that he was driving, and another one driven by Bruce Moran, 32, collided nearly head on. So he died from that. So there I found it. What?
No drinking was involved.
Of course not. Of course not. Okay. Commercial sites for newspapers. These are kind of the biggies. Newspapers.com is probably one of the better ones. Genealogy Bank, I subscribe to that right now, simply because they had a fantastic sale. It was like a two-year subscription, and 2-year subscription, and it was like $50 or $60 for 2 years. I couldn't pass that up. So newspapers.com, that would be the next one I subscribe to. They've got a huge collection. Ancestry.com has a large collection also. If you subscribe to Ancestry, you can get into it. MyHeritage is the other one. Given a choice between Ancestry and MyHeritage, because I have European ancestors, I am leaning more towards MyHeritage. They are very heavily used by the European communities, whereas Ancestry is pretty much the United States and Canada.
MyHeritage is out of Israel.
That's where their home site is, Israel, yes, for MyHeritage. And Legacy is the other one. They do a good job on obituaries. Okay, so newspapers.com, it's commercial, but it's got a huge collection of Wisconsin newspapers. But you can subscribe for 1 month or 6 months if you want. How much research can you do in 1 month? Especially now with the coronavirus. You can do a lot. So you could subscribe to it, do your research, and then unsubscribe. If you don't unsubscribe, it'll just continue your use of it and bill you on a monthly or 6 month basis. So you do need to cancel once in a while. Here's one, this is on newspapers.com. Again, it's a commercial site. I did a search for the Racine Journal-Times and their Sunday Bulletin, and I did a search for myself, and lo and behold, I got this. Now, what I did is I was able to pull this up. And what it is, it's an article, that's me, right there. I was 18 years old there. That's my brother Gary. And my brother Gary was in the Army, I was in the Air Force. He was already in Germany, and I was being assigned to Germany for 3 years. And it turned out we were 25 miles apart. So we got to visit each other fairly often. So there's the article. Again, newspapers.com, here's their subscription rate. It's $60 for 6 months. So you're talking $10 a month, roughly. And, or if you want, you can subscribe just for 1 month for $20. So for $20, you can get a lot done. Okay? And there are 2 collections there. One is the basic, that's the cheapie. And I would recommend you go for this one, the extra. It includes 422 million additional pages. So that gives you some work to do. Genealogy Bank, it's again a commercial website, $69.95 per year, so $5.83 a month. And usually they go on sale, 20% off typically, so $55.95 a year or $4.66 a month. You can get a 30-day trial for $9.95. That's not hard to beat. So for $10, you got a month to work on it. And it contains over 2 billion newspaper articles covering the period 1690 to 2016. There's over 250 million obituaries covering the period from 1693 to today, and historical documents other than newspaper articles from 1789 to 1994. And that usually includes military records, pension records, Revolutionary War, Civil War. So that's Genealogy Bank's starting page. That's what it looks like. And I did a search for my grandmother's brother, Sylvester Henningfield, and I pulled that up, and this is on Genealogy Bank. And it's his obituary. And he mentions my grandmother down here, Mrs. Margaret Heck from Racine. Oh, I have to tell you one thing about this guy. He has an identical twin brother. So you got Sylvester and Carlos. Both of them worked for the Milwaukee Transit System when it was streetcars. They would drive people absolutely nuts because somebody would get on one streetcar and they'd get off and transfer to another streetcar, and there's the same guy there. And they used to have a lot of fun doing that. So we hope that you learned something about this, about newspapers, that there's certainly more to genealogy than 3 dates. Go beyond that. Many of those resources are free, and many of your ancestors were in the newspaper columns. They did make it. And they're just waiting for you to discover them by you. Are there any questions? Yes, Steve.
Did you find that the 3 sites that you went to and found a lot of information were just as well found that way versus going through the sites that you subscribe to? Like $10 a month or $20, did you find as much the same or different?
No, I would, okay, he's asking if when I did searches going through some of these sites, was it the same information that I would get from some of the sites I subscribed to? Generally, they were not. There were some duplications, particularly in obituaries, but in general, not, I would say. Okay, good question. Yes?
On Google Archive, I have a web address that gave me the back door to the Milwaukee Journal and Sentinel, and now that site's not working. Do you know if there's another way?
Yes. Okay, she was saying that she was using a Google site, and it was Google Archives, right? Yeah, and at one time they had the Journal Sentinel on there, and now she goes on and they're not there. Well, you can thank the owner of the Journal Sentinel. What's their name? What is it?
Garnett?
No, I'm not a person's name, it's a name of a corporation.
Garnett Corporation.
Yeah, that must be it. Anyway, what they decided to do, they decided that, no, they're gonna charge if you want access. They want money. So they pulled out the free stuff, and that's what happened. It's a shame because at one point you could go through those newspapers, and now you can't unless you subscribe to them. So,
Bob, are they on Badger Link?
I'm sorry, Kathy?
Is the Milwaukee Journal on Badger Link?
No, they were at one time. She asked if the Milwaukee Journal was on Badger Link. There's a small little section on Badger Link, but it's not the Journal Sentinel that you're thinking of. And it was on there, and again, when the new owners took over, they pulled it off. It's unfortunate, yes.
The Milwaukee Journal is at the commercial site newspaperarchive.com.
Okay, newspaperarchives.com. Do you know what they charge?
No, but that's where it is.
Okay, so she's saying that the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel is at newspaperarchive.com. You want to jot that one down. That's a commercial site.
But we used to be able to get through through public library, through
Yeah.
Badger, that it was taken down. Remember, about a year or so ago? That's the site we lost.
Okay, so it was available one time, and it was taken down, but now it's on newspaperarchives.com.
Is that available on Wisconsin Historical Society?
I'm sorry?
Is that available on Wisconsin Historical Society?
I don't think so. The Milwaukee Journal is real tough. I mean, they won't play with anybody.
Yeah.
You gotta pay.
You gotta pay. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, Bruce?
Just a quick comment, of some of the oddities you can find. I went and looked at my own name in an Ohio newspaper, and it even mentioned the name of the ship I came home on from Korea.
Wow. Okay, anything else? Hey, we really appreciate your coming out tonight. I hope this recording has worked, because I plan on putting them up probably on YouTube, and you should be able to hear both presentations. And they're about an hour long, each one. And we'll see how it works out. We did this as an experiment tonight. So I want to thank you again for coming out, and drive carefully home. Make sure you check your area, pick up anything that you may have left behind. Okay? And we'll see you next month.
And let's shoot for 35 next month.
Yeah.
Do you have that?